After completing this chapter, the learner will be able to state what is meant by a distress notification, identify the different methods of sending a distress signal, state the aim of GMDSS, identify different types of GMDSS equipment used in a distress and state their function. Identify the contents of Annex 4 of the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea. Identify who has to respond to a distress signal. The duty officer and lookout are on the bridge. The lookout sees a red flare and reports it to the duty officer. The duty officer and the lookout watch the red flare, and the duty officer asks the lookout what he thinks would happen next. Welcome to this module on search and rescue. Depending on your previous experience, this module will either refresh your knowledge of or guide you through the process of a search and rescue operation. Chapter 1 covers different types of distress signals and their meaning. If you are already familiar with distress signals, you may be able to proceed quickly through this chapter. Please remember that there will be questions, both at the end of the chapter and at the end of the module. First, let us look at what a distress signal indicates and identify the different types available. What does a distress signal mean? A distress signal is a special type of communication. It shows that people, a ship or an aircraft are in serious danger and require immediate assistance. A distress signal is made up of two parts. Something audible or visual to attract your attention, for example, the red flare to make you take notice. An indication of the approximate position of the distress. For example, the red flare is northeast of your position. There are two groups of distress signaling equipment: Global Maritime and Distress and Safety System equipment and Annex 4 International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea equipment. The International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea, IRPC, are often referred to as COLREGs. We will look at both groups in detail. The aim of GMDSS is that when a craft sends a distress signal, shipping in the nearby area and search and rescue authorities ashore are informed of the distress. A coordinated search and rescue operation can then be started as soon as possible. The quantity and coverage of GMDSS equipment will depend on the sea areas the ship operates in. Make sure you know where each sea area is by clicking on each one in turn. Area A1 is an area within range of a VHF coast station with digital selective calling, DSC. Area A2 is an area excluding Sea Area A1 within range of an MF coast station with digital selective calling, DSC. Area A3 is an area excluding Sea Areas A1 and A2 within coverage of the Inmarsat system. Area A4 is any area outside A1, A2 and A3, which effectively means polar areas. The following distress equipment is required by GMDSS regulations for all passenger ships and all cargo ships over 300 gross tonnage on international voyages. Click on each piece of equipment to find out more about it. In addition to using GMDSS equipment, a second group of distress signals are listed in Annex 4 of the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea. Spend some time looking through the list to refresh your memory about possible ways of signalling distress. The master has been called to the bridge and asks the question, "What time did you see the distress signal? Have we heard any other messages, or has anyone responded?" Both the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, and Safety of Life at Sea, SOLAS, state that the master of a ship at sea, on receiving information from any source that persons are in distress at sea, shall provide assistance and proceed with all possible speed. This obligation to provide assistance applies regardless of the nationality or status of such persons, or the circumstances in which they are found. In other words, you cannot choose who to rescue and who not to. Under UNCLOS, the obligation to provide assistance depends upon it not causing serious danger to the ship, the crew, or the passengers. Under SOLAS, if the ship receiving the distress alert is unable, or in special cases considers it unreasonable or unnecessary to proceed to their assistance, the master must make an entry in the logbook. The reason for failing to proceed to the assistance of the persons in distress must be given, and the appropriate search and rescue service must be informed. There are certain situations where masters are released from the obligation to respond. Where one or more ships have been requested to respond and their ship has not, this decision shall be communicated to all parties involved and recorded in the logbook. When informed by the persons in distress, the search and rescue service, or the master of another ship who has reached those in distress that assistance is no longer necessary. This must also be recorded in the logbook. Apart from the self-assessment, this chapter is now complete. Before moving on to the next chapter, here is a summary of the key points from this one. A distress signal means that people are in serious danger and require immediate assistance. It is made up of an audible or visual signal to attract attention and an indication of the approximate position of the distress. There are two groups of distress equipment: GMDSS equipment and equipment which can be used to give the distress signals listed in Annex 4 of COLREGS. There is a general obligation to provide assistance to those in distress at sea, unless the master considers it unsafe, unreasonable, or unnecessary to respond. An entry must be made in the logbook giving the reason for failing to proceed to the assistance of those in distress, and the appropriate search and rescue service must be informed. After completing this chapter, the learner will be able to recognize the parties involved in search and rescue and their responsibilities, identify who to contact when a distress signal is received, SOLAS and other regulations require every state to have an effective air and sea search and rescue service on a 24-hour basis for their territories, territorial seas, and, where appropriate, the high seas. A search and rescue region is an area of given size associated with a rescue coordination centre within which search and rescue services are provided. A rescue coordination centre is a shore-based centre responsible for coordinating the conduct of search and rescue operations within a defined search and rescue region. Usually there are 3 levels of coordination in a search and rescue operation. Search and rescue coordinators are the top-level managers with overall responsibility for establishing, staffing, equipping and managing the search and rescue system, establishing the Rescue Coordination Centre and rescue subcentres, providing or arranging for search and rescue facilities, coordinating search and rescue training, developing search and rescue policies. Each search and rescue operation is carried out under the guidance of a Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator, SMC. The SMC guides the search and rescue operation until a rescue has been completed or further efforts would be of no use. The Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator should be well trained in all search and rescue processes and be thoroughly familiar with the necessary search and rescue plans and procedures. When 2 or more search and rescue facilities are working together on the same mission, one person at the scene may be needed to coordinate the activities of all participating facilities. The Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator designates an On-Scene Coordinator, OSC. This may be the person in charge of a search and rescue unit, a ship, an aircraft, or a nearby facility in a position to handle OSC duties. The person in charge of the first facility to arrive at the scene usually assumes the role of on-scene coordinator until the SMC arranges for that person to be relieved. The resources available to the Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator at the Regional Coordination Centre would depend on location and finances. Examples would be nearby ships, aircraft, helicopters, rescue boats, military or civilian. Search and rescue mission coordinators have access to resources the on-scene coordinator does not. One very good resource is AIS. AIS will identify those ships in close range of the incident and give an indication of the size of ship and facilities on board. This means the SMC will only need to contact those vessels that are more capable and close by, and not waste time with ships that are not suitable or unable to respond. Long-range identification tracking is a method of recording the ship's position at least every 6 hours. This information is stored by a company authorized by the flag state. Search and rescue authorities have permission to obtain data about ships in areas near their distress incident free of charge. Ship reporting systems are either voluntary or mandatory. Mandatory reporting points need to be checked during passage planning. Voluntary ones, such as AMVER, would be recommended by the company. The advantages for search and rescue of using a reporting system are that it enables the SMC to identify ships near to a distress situation, along with their positions, courses and speeds. Be aware of other information about the ships, such as if there are medical facilities on board. Know how to contact the ships. Improve the likelihood of rapid aid during emergencies, and reduce the number of calls for assistance to ships not well located to respond. After setting off a distress signal, the signal will be picked up by a shore station, aircraft, or a nearby ship. They should then alert others in the following order. The Rescue Coordination Centre responsible for the search and rescue region where the incident occurred. The nearest Rescue Coordination Centre, any RCC which can be reached, or any communications facility. Apart from the self-assessment, this chapter is now complete. Before moving on to the next chapter, here is a summary of the key points from this one. Click on each of the slides if you would like a reminder of the main points. After completing this chapter, the learner will be able to identify the role of IMSAR Volume 3. Identify what communications procedures to follow when receiving a distress message. Identify communications required on scene. Identify the communications between the OSC and air facilities. Identify when cancellation of a distress message could occur. The International Aeronautical and Maritime Search and Rescue, IMSAR, manual is made up of 3 volumes, each with specific search and rescue duties. The manual is published jointly by the International Civil Aviation Organization and the International Maritime Organization, IMO. Volume 3 must be carried on board search and rescue units, civil aircraft and ships, and is to provide guidance to those who operate aircraft, ships and other craft that may be called upon to support search and rescue operations, may need to perform on-scene coordinator functions for multiple facilities in the vicinity of a distress situation, experience actual or potential emergencies, and may require search and rescue, SAR, assistance. You should be familiar with this flowchart from IMSAR Volume 3. Following the correct procedures is important in an emergency. For instance, if you acknowledge a distress message too quickly, then confusion can occur, and valuable time may be lost in implementing a search and rescue plan. Take some time to study the flowchart. After you have acknowledged the distress message, obtain the following information from the distressed craft, if possible. The position of the distressed craft. The distressed craft's identity, call sign and name. The number of persons on board. The type of assistance required. The nature of distress or casualty. The number of victims, if any. The distressed craft's course and speed. Type of craft and cargo carried. Any other relevant information that might facilitate the rescue. The responding vessel should maintain contact with the distressed craft and advise the search and rescue unit about the situation. All available means should be used to keep track of the distressed craft at all times. The following information should be communicated to the distressed craft. Own vessel's identity, call sign and name. Own vessel's position. Own vessel's speed and estimated time of arrival to distressed craft site. The distressed craft's true bearing and distance from ship. The ship or coast radio station coordinating distress traffic should establish contact with the SMC and pass on all available information. This should then be regularly updated. The Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator usually selects dedicated search and rescue radio frequencies for use on scene and informs all relevant parties via the Search Action Plan. When only a small number of units are involved, communications may be kept on one coordinating frequency. In a more complex situation, with many units responding, then communications should be divided to avoid congestion. Take a look at the communication structure suggested by IMSAR. The OSC should coordinate communications on scene and ensure reliable communications are maintained. In order to maintain reliable communications, it is important that when a frequency change is carried out, each party knows what to do if communications cannot be re-established on the new frequency. Another way of maintaining reliable communications is to have situation reports, SITREPs. The on-scene coordinator uses SITREPs to keep the search and rescue mission coordinator informed of on-scene progress and conditions. SITREPs are sent to the SMC unless otherwise advised. Search facilities use SITREPs to keep the OSC informed. SITREPs should not be delayed when waiting for confirmation of details. They should be issued as soon as other relevant information is obtained. Information already passed should not be repeated. During a long operation, a no-change SITREP should be issued. Each SITREP should be numbered sequentially, and a final SITREP should be issued as a confirmation. SITREP reporting forms are available in IAMSAR Volume 3. Click on each form for more information on what is contained in each SITREP. The short form should be used to pass urgent details and when requesting assistance, or to provide the earliest notice of a casualty. The long form contains all the information from the short form, as well as information useful in expanding or updating information during search and rescue operations. Sometimes aircraft will be involved in the search and rescue operation, and it is important the OSC knows how to communicate with the aircraft. All search and rescue aircraft are equipped to communicate with ships and survival craft. They can communicate by using Channel 16, VHF AM 121.5 MHz as a minimum. Droppable radios operating on 123.1 MHz and or Channel 16 can be used for communication with survivors. Communications between the ship and a helicopter is usually done directly between the two. The RCC advises the on-scene coordinator that the helicopter is on its way and to stand by on Channel 16. The communications that follow are led by the helicopter, because they will know exactly what information is required for the situation. Civil aircraft do not usually have equipment to communicate with ships. Aircraft use AM, whilst maritime units use FM to communicate. However, civil aircraft can indicate their distress or intentions to ditch by lowering landing gear or flashing their landing lights on and off. The RCC will often assist in helping the aircraft by direct communications or by passing on messages. A distress message should be cancelled as soon as the distressed craft has been found and any survivors rescued, or when the assistance of search and rescue facilities is no longer required. Any false alerts, including those sent in error, should be cancelled so that search and rescue authorities do not needlessly respond. Apart from the self-assessment, this chapter is now complete. Before moving on to the next chapter, here is a summary of the key points from this one. Volume 3 of the IAMSAR manual must be carried on board to provide guidance for search and rescue operations. Following the correct procedures for acknowledging distress signals is vital to avoid wasting time in search and rescue operations. The Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator usually selects dedicated search and rescue radio frequencies. Distressed craft, the OSC, and the Aircraft Coordinator, ACO, should normally use VHF Channel 16. The on-scene coordinator uses SITREPs to keep the Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator informed of on-scene progress and conditions. Civil aircraft do not usually have equipment to communicate with ships. The RCC will often assist in helping the aircraft by direct communications or by passing on messages. Distress messages can be cancelled when the rescue is complete or when assistance is no longer required. False alerts should be cancelled.